Thank you very much. I didn't know whether I was going to make Columbus or not, but here I am. This is part of my Patriot tour, and it is an attempt to bring people together from all parts of the political spectrum to take back America. We have been artificially divided for much too long. We've been divided into left and right, liberal and conservative, Democrat, Republican. And we have been divided by the wealthy elite, the global robber barons of the New World Order, in order that we fight against each other and not resist them. These divisions are artificial. They own both major political parties at the national level, and they take their political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans, and they say, well, you be for abortion, you be against it, you be for school prayer, you be against it, gay rights, gun control. And they divide up the hot button issues to give us the illusion that we have a choice. But you know, the thing that all those hot button issues have in common is that the wealthy elites could care less how it turns out. Those issues do not affect their bottom line, so they don't care. But when it comes to issues that matter to them, that's another matter. Going to war to secure an oil or gas pipeline, signing an international trade agreement to drive down wages and increase their profits. At those times, they expect both major political parties to come together, toe the line, and do what they're told. And for the most part, they do. Now, nobody can hold a candle to George W. Bush when it comes to wars of aggression. But Bill Clinton gave us the rape of Yugoslavia and the 70-day bombing of Kosovo in violation of the War Powers Act and the U.S. Constitution. On international trade, George W. Bush has given us CAFTA, is attempting to give us the North American Union, which would complete the job of giving away our sovereignty and would finish us off and make us a third world country. Yep. But Bill Clinton, as good as he was on some things, he gave us NAFTA and the World Trade Organization. And it was Al Gore, who was so marvelous on global warming, that was the hatchet man for the Clinton administration and crammed NAFTA down the throats of a reluctant Congress. So we do face a situation in which often we are given a choice between Tweedledee and Tweedledum, and in some cases between Tweedledum and Tweedledummer. And we've got to stop that. We've got to take our country back.
Right.
I had hoped to be able to address you tonight as Congressman Bob Bowman. Didn't happen. I did win my primary in the Democratic Party against a self-proclaimed middle-of-the-road mainstream Democrat named John Kennedy. But I lost the general election to a 7-term incumbent Republican and his Debo touchscreen voting machines. So since I can't address you as Congressman Bob Bowman, I decided I would address you as President Bob Bowman. I'm going to ask you to pretend that I'm addressing you as President of the United States, giving my State of the Union address shortly after my inauguration. Your role is to play members of Congress, the Supreme Court, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Cabinet, and various and sundry dignitaries. Your task, therefore, as always in these events, is to clap and cheer like crazy when you hear something you like, and sit on your hands when you don't. The purpose of that, of course, as always, is to let the American people watching on television know what it is they're supposed to believe. Seated behind me are the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate, who of course is also the Vice President of the United States. Madam Speaker, Madam President, distinguished members of Congress, honored guests, and my fellow Americans. The United States is unquestionably number one in number one in our use of the world's resources, number one in the production of pollution, number one in the gap between the rich and the poor, number one in deaths by gunfire, number one in teen pregnancy, number one in poverty among the elderly, number one in citizens without health coverage, number one in child poverty, number one in homeless veterans, and number one in citizens behind bars. We are the world's number one debtor nation, number one in the creation of new billionaires, number one in school dropouts, number one in poverty, homelessness, hunger, divorce, suicide, and oh yes, number one in military force, nuclear weapons, and military spending, as much as all the other countries in the world combined. We also lead the world in the number of hours worked per family, since it now takes 2 wage earners and 3 jobs to bring in the same income you could get with 1 job working 40 hours a week in the 1950s. In spite of soaring productivity, real wages in this country are 1/3 of what they were in the 1950s. If it wasn't for corporate control of our government and the resulting trickle-down economics, workers today could support their families comfortably with 1 job, working 2 days a week. Would you like to have a 5-day weekend every week? If worker pay had kept pace with executive pay, the average worker today would be making $1 million a year. And the minimum wage would be $171 an hour. What do you call a country where the gap between the rich and the poor grows beyond bounds, whose principal exports are wood pulp and scrap metal, whose principal imports are manufactured goods, and whose fastest growing industry is the construction and operation of private prisons? You could call it a 3rd world country, and that is the State of the Union we have inherited. In our government's drive to protect the far-flung financial interests of multinational corporations, we have abandoned our principles and fought wars of aggression against small countries. We have overthrown popularly elected leaders and installed puppet dictators who sell out their own people to our corporations. In our drive toward a corporate New World Order, we have sold out our workers, our families, our environment, our children's futures, and the American dream. This, too, is the State of the Union we have inherited. Now, we've had the opportunity to create a land without want. What went wrong? Why are our workers paid such a tiny percentage of their true worth? Why are we the only major nation without a national health program? Why are our high school graduates 2 years behind their counterparts in other countries? Why are we hated by so many around the world? Why do we have hundreds of thousands of troops patrolling foreign lands and supporting foreign dictators? What's going on? Well, the answer, I'm afraid, is that we have lost our republic. Legislators no longer represent the people who elect them, but the corporations who finance them. They answer not to their constituents, but to the lobbyists who lie in their pockets and fill their campaign coffers.